right, welcome everybody to another episode of the Startup Junkies podcast. Thank you for watching, listening, tuning in from wherever you are, however you are. Go ahead and like and subscribe and do all that good stuff right at the beginning before we scare you off. My name is Caleb Talley, Director of Marketing at Startup Junkie. I am joined by a co-host you'll recognize, Jeff Amerine, founder and managing director of Startup Junkie. And we have a less than familiar face on the podcast with us as well. She's been on the podcast before, but she's back, Morgan, with the Startup Junkie team. And our special guest today is Nicole Calhoun with ELXR Yoga Lounge. Thank you for joining us.
Woo-hoo. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So tell us, what is ELXR Yoga Lounge or ELXR Yoga Lounge? I've already had my beer.
So it's okay. So ELXR Yoga Lounge is a boutique hip hop hot yoga studio, power yoga studio, if you want to be really specific. So what we have done is created a very, very specific niche cut out in the market of yoga in Northwest Arkansas, and just made it really modern and really fun and really accessible and welcoming to anyone, no matter who they are.
For their yoga ability level, I will also say all levels are welcome, speaking from experience.
This is very true. This is very true.
Yeah.
So how did you get into it? Give us kind of the backstory of how you got into the business and a little bit of the origin story for you.
Yeah. So I once upon a time was just a yogi, not a yoga teacher, going to classes. And, I'd been practicing, I think for about 6 or 7 years, and kind of wanted to not only take things further with my own personal practice, but I kind of felt like, I had something to say within the world of yoga, and like watching all the yoga teachers over the years and how, influential they could be, and how mindful that they were with the way that they, lived their lives, and just their ability to really help people was super impressive to me. And so I decided to go to yoga teacher training. And so I went to yoga teacher training, which is a 200-hour certification program. The one that I chose to go to is actually in Dallas. So I drove every single weekend from Fayetteville to Dallas, and spent Saturday and Sunday training in this program, and then would come back Sunday night. So that's how committed I was to this. For 12 weeks or 12 or 14 weekends, I drove to Dallas and did this training. And when I got done training, it really took me a little bit of time, maybe like 1.5 years, to kind of really find out who I am as a teacher and what I truly have to offer. I knew that there was something that I had to say, and I wanted to get out, some message that I wanted to get out through the power of yoga. But it took me teaching, and kind of just figuring out who I am, and developing a method to my teaching to figure out what that message was. And so eventually I started teaching at a studio up in Rogers, and taught there for a couple of years, and just really sharpened the edges of my teaching skills, and developed a following up there for what I was doing. It was kind of, I found pretty quickly that people really loved the classes that I was teaching, because it was so different and because it was so challenging. But not only was it challenging, it was super motivating. And no matter what we were doing, I could convince you that you can do this if you just take the time to believe in yourself. And even if you don't believe in yourself, I'll believe in you when that time gets hard. And if we can just carry each other through the bad times in this practice, through the rough times, we can come out on the other side of it truly transformed and better human beings. Sounds extremely deep, but it's true. So got this following in Rogers for what I was doing. And I was approached by the manager at Lululemon at the time, because I was a Lululemon ambassador, a yoga ambassador for Lululemon. And the manager at my store was like, hey, we're moving the store upstairs, in the building that we're at on West Center Street there. And was like, you should start a yoga studio in the space that we're moving out of. And I was like, no way, no. It's just like, I don't know how. I'm scared. That's a lot of work. I'm good. And so I passed on the space, and somebody else initially, I believe, rented it. And then their lease actually fell through. And so the space came back on the market, and she was like, hey, it's back. Like, the space is back. This is serendipity. You're supposed to do this. Like, and I'm like, oh. So just because that happened, the spot came back open. I was like, okay, I have to really consider this and think about this, because that was weird that happened like that. And so talked to the listing agent, and he's like, well, you got about a week to decide what you want to do, or I'm putting it on the market. We got to rent it. And so I thought about it probably out of that week, 6 days and 23 hours. And at the very last minute was like, yeah, okay, I want to rent the space. And so I rented the space, came up with the brand, the marketing, the teachers, everything, the design of the studio, what we wanted to offer and how we wanted to offer it, and put it all together in about a month. And then we opened about 30 days after I signed the lease. So it was crazy.
That's fast.
Yeah, it was really fast.
And how long have you been open now?
It was 2 years in November. So about 2 years and 2 months, 2 years and 3 months.
So just for context for our global listeners, this yoga lounge is just probably 200 yards from the Startup Junkies that's here in Fayetteville.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. So she's our neighbor.
Yeah.
I forgot where I was going with that question. We had a beer mid.
Oh man. I would have had a beer. Why'd you tell me to have a beer?
Yeah, but I can't because I'm actually going to class tonight now.
Oh yeah, no beer.
Out, so
no beer.
Well, so when you described the brand, you started off and you said that it's hot yoga, and you've got the hip hop piece of it. So most people are familiar somewhat with yoga, and some people may have heard of hot yoga. Talk about how all those pieces fit together in the way you offer what you offer.
Well, from being a practitioner in this area for so long, I knew that there was no true power yoga in this area, in all of Northwest Arkansas. And so if you know anything about yoga, you know that there's different subsets of yoga, and different types of yoga that you can do. Power yoga is a very intense form of yoga where your heart rate is gonna get really high. You're gonna sweat a lot. It's going to be a very strength building practice. So it's going to work your muscles a lot. It's going to build muscle, build strength, and also build flexibility. So I hate to say that it's more of an aerobic workout than other forms of yoga, but in all honesty, it is. It's an aerobic workout. It's something that is going to keep the heart healthy, the lungs healthy, circulation, all of that, help you burn calories and build strength. And probably every studio in the area at that time was like, hey, we have a power yoga class. But I'd been to all those classes and none of them were true power yoga classes. Also, most of the studios in the area offer, hot yoga, but there's a difference between, tepid, warm, and hot. And so, their power yoga was not really power yoga. It was just regular vinyasa flow that they may add a couple more push-ups to or something. And their hot yoga was, maybe 88, 90 degrees. Ours is 98 to 100 degrees. So it's true power and it's true hot, which were two things that were lacking in the area. Another thing that I thought was that was seriously lacking in the area was a truly branded experience. So I took a lot I looked at Orange Theory, their model, a lot, and just saw how they were really, really branded. And every single thing that they did, the workouts, the teachers, the clothing that they wore, the uniforms that they wore, how they spoke, the things that they said, it was all very, very branded. So it created an environment or a community that people wanted to belong to. It was more sharp, it was more professional, and it did better than any other form of workout around here. And I thought to myself, what if I could take that mindset and apply it to yoga, hot power yoga, and oh yeah, let me add hip hop because hip hop is cool. A lot of people like hip hop. And when people are getting their butts handed to them, they want good music. You don't want to get your butt handed to you and have crappy music in the background. Like you want something that's going to drive and motivate you and like get you crunk and, all the things. And so just I really had to put that together really quickly within 30 days. But it took things from my culture, my personality, and for me to be able to just really pull together something that was truly, truly unique in this area, and something that's really done well because of all those different aspects of it.
Yeah, when I describe it to people, I like to use the eloquent phrase of you sweat your ass off, basically.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, yeah.
To be so hot that you're uncomfortable, right? Like,
well, yes. So the heat, it does make you uncomfortable, but I wouldn't say that's the purpose of it. So what the heat does, it's just going to add to that power aspect of the yoga. It's going to help get your heart rate up. It's going to help you burn calories, which a lot of people, like, no matter what workout, people want to burn calories, and that heat's going to help them burn calories. It also, what a lot of people don't realize is that the heat, being in that heat, is really good for your immune system. Even if you're in it for an hour at a time a day, it's basically mimicking an artificial fever in your body.
But I just wanted to take a little rabbit trail and see if, Nicole, you would share a little bit about your background, because you're probably one of the few yoga instructors and studio owners who also has a Ph.D. in molecular biology. So when you're talking about heat
Yes.
for your immune system, you know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I like to think so. So I was trained, I went to school, like Morgan said, for the sciences. I have a undergraduate degree in biology and a PhD in molecular genetics. And so what I was doing before, all the yoga stuff was molecular genetics, biomedical research to begin, which is basically biomedical research is developing different medicines. It could be different therapeutics, things like that are going to help in the medicine world, but as a scientist doing that kind of thing. And I was actually working at the university when I opened the studio as a molecular geneticist there, and was developing vaccines. And when the studio opened, I was trying to juggle both of those things, opening this brand new business, and oh yeah, I'm a molecular geneticist and I'm working a full-time job doing that. And so I actually got laid off at the end of March because of COVID. I was a COVID layoff. The company that I actually worked for was based in China, and the company hired the university hired me, to develop these vaccines. And so when COVID hit, the company obviously lost a lot of money, had to lay off a lot of workers in the US, and I was one of those workers. So I was kind of forced into yoga full time, which was a goal of mine eventually, to do this, yoga full time. But COVID just kind of pushed my hand in it, forced my hand and forced the situation, which was really scary in the beginning. I'm not going to lie, to have trained all these years in science and then be told that your job is kaput and your benefits are gone and all these things was really, really scary. And kind of upsetting, you spend all these years in this career and all of a sudden it's yanked from under you because of no fault of your own. But after talking to my husband, he's like, well, just do yoga full time. That's what you've been wanting to do. So here's your chance. And so I devoted myself for the rest of 2020 fully to the yoga studio.
Yeah. And I mean,
yeah.
That's adversity sometimes is drives the necessity to do something on your own, because the predictable goes away. And having that kind of background, so that kind of disciplined background in the sciences, how does that inform how you run the business? Has that helped you as a problem solver, or just talk about how that has helped you in the process?
Absolutely, it's helped. And I'm actually very thankful that I have a background in the sciences, because science is very analytical and it's very fact-based. So you don't really do science or run experiments or projects off emotion. It's all based off facts. Like, these are the facts, and I'm not going to try to massage the facts to fit my narrative. I'm going to, find out the facts and then find out the narrative. And so that was very helpful. It's still very, very helpful, because I see things with an unemotional mind. And I think a lot of times when people are starting businesses, especially from something that's a passion project, they have the tendency to sometimes get their emotions involved and let emotions cloud judgment. And the fact that I have that very analytical and scientific mind has really, really helped me keep clear glasses on as far as what's happening in the business. Also problem solving. Being a scientist, a molecular geneticist is basically solving problems. People who do that are people who love to solve riddles, love to solve puzzles by looking at facts, right? So it's the exact same thing. I love to solve the problems whenever they come up, and figure out ways based on facts and based on what's presented in front of me to continue to grow and solve any issues that we've had.
Now that commitment to the scientific method, that's something we
Mhm.
teach in the lean canvas method for
Oh,
startups. And we tell them it's this idea of you've got to be a consultant to your own idea, and
mhm,
you've got to either validate or invalidate your assumptions based on what you find in the market
mhm.
through empirical evidence. So hearing you say that, I mean, you went exactly the direction I kind of hoped you would without knowing
Yeah.
you would. But that's kind of refreshing, and I mean,
Yeah.
it's pretty inspiring too that you can take that fundamental analytical way of questioning your assumptions and make a better business by going through a good process. So I'm really
Yes.
glad to hear that.
Yeah. And I've never been foolish enough to know that I solely alone know everything. No matter what big decision that I've ever made with a business, I've always consulted people who are involved in the business with me, and those who I really trust to give honest feedback and intelligent feedback. As far as when we were opening, like developing the pricing scale that we were going to have, I talked to so many people that I really thought had something informative and helpful to say about what they thought the pricing should be. Like, how much should one class cost? How much should a mat rental cost? Those kinds of things. I'm really, really good about when there's something that I want to figure out or implement, doing a lot of research and listening to all these different opinions, and then coming to a conclusion that I think is going to be best for the business.
You've
So,
got this one great location. It seems like you've survived the god awful pandemic and what that's done to any consumer facing business. Do you have an aspiration to really blow it up? Do you want to have 20 of these studios all over the place, or what's the future look like for you?
I I ask myself that every day, like where is this going? Because we've had a very, very, very good run so far, a very good run, and a very successful business. We were out of opening debt, I think, within 2 or 3 months. The business was debt free. So obviously, what we're doing is working, and I think the only other way to go is up. So right now I'm thinking about more locations. I'm thinking about how maybe we could expand to the digital market. Um, Although I know in the COVID world that everybody thinks the digital market is where it's at, but one thing that we did discover during the pandemic and the shutdown was that people don't want what we got online. Being honest, they want what we got. They want to come to us and get what we got. And that was a huge lesson. I was really, really shocked by that when we had to close because everyone had to close their businesses. In the beginning, the attendance on the classes was great. It even kind of increased, a little bit. And then it slowly declined over like the month and a half that we were closed because people want the in-studio experience from us. And just because that's, another studio can have their class up online, it would be silly for me to keep forcing something that's not organic to happen for us. Truly, people want to be in the space. They want to be with us. They want the heat. They want the community, the camaraderie that we've created in the studio. And so maybe a week or so after we reopened, after the shutdown, things were a little slow. Everything's touch and go. People are scared. But after that, I mean, people were back in like gangbusters. And it's the attendance has just been, increasing ever since. And we just had to close for like 4 days again, the in studio, because we had to get the floors redone. Same thing. Same thing. So it's like I could either, wear my heart on my sleeve and be like, no, we need to be online, or I could accept the facts that are being presented in front of me, which is people would rather be in the studio with us than online with us. And so I need to focus my energy and my efforts for the time being on the studio experience and possibly expansion of the studio experience.
It's a good insight for sure.
Yeah.
I'm occupying all the airtime. I'm gonna turn it over. I do that. They get me on here, and it's like I wish the old guy would shut up and give somebody else a chance. So. Morgan, Caleb, take it away.
well, I just, I love I always encourage people to major in their majors, like lean into what you have the most traction doing. And that sounds exactly like what you're doing in the COVID, the COVID pivot. But you're not just teaching yoga classes. So you also, when you were mentioning that grueling drive to Dallas to do your 200-hour certification training, I happen to know that you now facilitate those trainings, and those cohorts are basically booked out. So you have probably a waiting list of crazy people who want to spend 16 hours every weekend doing yoga. So what is it? 16? And they all have like jobs. They're like therapists and pharmacists and architects. Like,
Yeah.
and you have a waiting list for people who want more.
Yeah. Yes. You're exactly right. So I'm leading my own 200-hour teacher trainings now, and this is actually the third one that we're wrapping up. This coming Valentine's Day is the graduation, but you're absolutely right. Those people who are in there are people who are starting to look for something more out of life than what they've already experienced. I have an attorney in there. I have a doctor of physical therapy, a pharmacist. You're right. I've had architects in there. It's crazy. Like all these super, super intelligent, highly motivated and accomplished people are like, okay, I want to teach yoga now. So, and then people are like, what? Why?
In addition to my day job, I want to spend.
Yes. I want to be a
16 hours
lawyer
every
and
week.
teach yoga.
Yeah.
Exactly. I want to be a lawyer and teach yoga. And it's like, okay, well, let's do it. And it's very, it's so uplifting for me. It's such an experience for me, just as it is for them. Every single time we do this, I learn more and more about myself as a person, as a woman, as a teacher. And I'm going to continue to do it as far as I can in the near future. I do need a little bit of a break because I've done 2 this year, 2 within 12 months. So I'm gonna take a little bit of a break from the 200-hour teacher trainings, and really just use the rest of 2021 to focus on myself and my own continuing education in yoga. And also we have a spiritual immersion in September called Yoga Seva Chill. That's a trip to Africa that we're taking with the studio. And so I think I'm going to focus on that and my own continuing education.
That's awesome. So I also happen to know that you are very, I go to the yoga studio, so I have and I was
She has
totally one of
inside
those
knowledge.
people who was like, oh, we're doing class on Zoom. I was like, I can't do class on Zoom. I can't get my house up to 95 degrees and be inspired by these like strong women who are and these dope beats. Like that's exactly what I go for. It's like
exactly.
I've tried to do yoga at so many different points in my life, and this is like, oh wow, it's a totally different animal, and it's awesome. But
I appreciate that.
So you are very influential on social media. In fact, I would say an influencer, right? So I'm not the best person to be asking this question because I'm the most illiterate of us all. But so maybe talk about that progression and like how that's interfaced with your business. Like what came first? Did you kind of grow those things simultaneously?
Absolutely. So in my teacher training, we actually have an entire weekend dedicated to like the business of yoga. So where I teach them, they're not learning how to do a handstand, they're learning about the business of yoga. They're learning about liability. They're learning about, what a good rate is to charge somebody for a private, or how to interview at a studio, just everything that's associated with business in yoga. Part of that is social media. And I tell them, you have to really understand and accept and nurture what your goals are as a yoga teacher. If your goals, sorry, I keep getting calls even though I'm on do not disturb. If your goals as a yoga teacher are to kind of just remain obscure, keep it small, and, just maybe teach a class every once in a while, that is absolutely okay. You should listen to yourself and live your true self with your goals in yoga. If your goal with yoga is to blow up and like do worldwide classes and travel the world teaching yoga and like have all these brands coming after you to represent their product, you're going to have to learn to be okay on social media. Like this is the 21st century. If you don't like social media, but you want to blow up, you need to get over it.
You can't.
You got to get over it. Like and it is crazy because whenever we do that, I'm like, okay, how many of you hate social media? And almost always the majority of them raise their hand. And I'm like, what do you hate about it? And, you know, they give me all the things that they hate about it. And then I'm like, okay, you're going to have to get over that. This is no way around it. You hate listening to your voice on camera. You're going to have to get over that. You hate seeing your face on social media. You're going to have to get over that. If you want to go here with yoga. If you don't want to go here, then it's not that much of a problem. But if you do want to go here, then you're going to have to learn to get over it, and you're going to learn how to you're going to have to learn how to develop a social media platform that's going to help you grow your presence and help you sell your product, which is in essence you. And so we talk about that. I 100% believe that my social media status helped me be where I'm at today. I would be lying if I said it didn't. So the blow up on social media came first, and then came, you know, the following, which made it easier for me to get a following, to gather a following in this area. And then, which made it easier for me to open a studio and have people to come and for it to be successful. Those things they could have happened. I'm not saying they would not have happened. They would not have happened as easily. Mm-hmm. If I didn't have a social media presence, because there are 100%, there without a doubt, people who have walked into that space and said that they are here because they follow me on social media. And so it's just something, especially if you're a business owner, you have to learn to become social media savvy. And you not only that, you have to learn the different platforms and which platform is going to be most inclusive of your audience. So you're not going to market the same way on Facebook as you do on Instagram, as you do on TikTok. And so if you can't really hone who your audience is, it's going to be really hard for you to figure out which one of those platforms you should be pouring all your energy into. For us, it's Instagram. Our clientele base and followers it's Instagram, not so much Facebook. So we put more energy into Instagram, less energy into Facebook. I've played around with the idea of TikTok because I think that, you know, TikTok is, if you want to blow up on social media, the quickest it's going to happen on TikTok. Their algorithm is just more accepting of everybody. The content doesn't have to be perfect. Instagram is very picture perfect. So we want to see beautifully edited, sharp, well-lit pictures, right? And videos on Instagram, or we keep scrolling. On TikTok, it can look like crap. If the content is good, they're going to jive with it. And so if I could clone myself, I would make us a TikTok account and we would be on TikTok because it's right now the best way to blow up on social media. And more businesses are starting to realize that and turn to TikTok as a source of free marketing.
Yeah, that was another question I had. Do you do all of your own social medias, or do you?
Yes, ma'am.
Wow.
I'm way too type A to let anybody else do it. I'm way too type A and like stressed about how everything looks to let anybody else do it.
Wow. And then all of those, you know, camera angles, editing, all of that was just, those are things you just taught yourself.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Essentially, just basically, you know, training and studying and getting things down to a science. Exactly. Essentially getting things down to a science. I also happen to be really good friends with somebody who's got way more followers on me, and she's a very business savvy yoga woman. And so she's helped a lot with just showing me the business and being the savviness on social media as well. So you got to know the right people.
So what happens when there are, you know, 50 ELXR Yoga Lounges across the region, and you've got to rely on, you know, somebody to do all those posts for you out, and you've got to delegate some of that out?
Then I will be okay. If there's 50 EYLs, then yeah, we've delegated the social media a long time ago.
So I've got a question for you. I mean, you're obviously developing this thought leadership, and you love teaching. Do you ever see there a time where you decide, this is great and yoga has been fantastic, but I'm kind of yearning to teach people based on my academic background? Maybe I want to do a little university teaching in microbiology or in genetics. Do you see a pull back towards that other passion you had at one point, or what's your take on that?
Honestly, I don't. If I don't see myself going back, you know, with jumping in with 2 feet back into university life. I definitely don't see that. If I, I have thought from time to time just about doing some freelance writing, maybe, or freelance researching, or something like that. I've done a little bit of advising on projects since I've lost my job at the university, but I don't see myself jumping back into it with both feet. Maybe a dabble here or there, but I truly like the life that I have now with the yoga. I make my own schedule. I'm my own boss. I'm doing something that I love. That's good for me and keeps me healthy. And it's actually, there's a purpose to it in everybody's life. So that's something that really, it means a lot to me. And so as of now, I'm happy.
Well, and so I'm gonna roll another grenade your way to see what you think about it. So and take it for what it's worth. But do you ever see a situation where obviously wellness and exercise and fitness and well-being, there's a mind-body connection and there's a biochemical connection and all that. Do you ever see that intersection between your formal education and what you do with yoga intersecting in a way that you could go a level deeper to say, here's all the scientific evidence based on my own research that shows the impact? That mind-body connection, that connection between the physiology and the microbiology and the genetics and yoga, do you ever see yourself driving in some direction that goes even a level deeper based on your academic education in yoga than what others can go, just because you have the scientific knowledge? I mean, I could see a research question to say, what's the epigenetic impact of parents who go deep in yoga and their offspring? I don't know, but there's bound to be some kind of interesting scientific question that you would be uniquely qualified to investigate if you were so inclined. So that was kind of the gist of the question.
For sure, I could see that. There is a scientific side to yoga that really interested me. Right now, it's more of a biomedical thing with me. I'm working in my continuing education to be a certified yoga therapist. What that means is that I would use yoga to in therapeutic settings to solve or heal certain issues in clients. For instance, therapeutic yoga of the spine, therapeutic yoga of the hip, the shoulder, things like that. So it's like, how can I use yoga to solve these issues within the spine? So that's biomedical based right there in that situation. But I could absolutely see taking it a step further and maybe, look at how yoga could possibly be involved in being therapeutic in genetic situations.
Oh,
absolutely,
cool.
I see that. Mm-hmm.
Well, absent the internet connections, that would have been an award-winning dialogue there.
Oh man.
We'll still get it.
Darn it. Yeah.
Nicole, would you talk a little bit just about your experience in starting a business in Northwest Arkansas? What was it like for you here?
Yes.
That experience.
So I think that, I'm very, very lucky in that my husband has a business background. He owns businesses in the area.
Oh, nice.
And so, yeah, yes. So, I knew nothing about starting a business. Like, I didn't even know that I needed a business license. Like, I didn't know any of that. I didn't know what LLC, DB, I didn't know any of it. And he was very instrumental in helping me, did you get a business license? I didn't know I needed one. Well, yeah, you need one. Okay, great. How do I do that?
Sounds like majority of our clients, so it's great.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, he's like, you need a business account. I'm like, okay, where should I get one? Like, there's all these kinds of things like this. Yeah. He was very instrumental with doing all of that for me. What he doesn't understand is like the business of yoga. And so it's like, from day one, he's like, well, why don't you just rent, I've got all these commercial buildings. Why don't you just put it here? Like, why does it matter where the studio is? Why does it matter how it looks? It's a carpeted. It's okay. Absolutely not. It's not okay. Absolutely not. This is not okay. So we really came together. He learned things that he didn't know mattered in a business like this, i.e. location, i.e., you have to have good walk by traffic. You can't just put it way out in the back of some building, and things have to look nice, things have to look clean, and all these things that you wouldn't think about, he didn't know. And then all the business stuff, he really was good at teaching me. So, but starting a business, I feel like starting a business in Northwest Arkansas, from my experience, it could be different business industry, was fairly simple. It was fairly simple. It was fairly quick and straightforward. And the thing I like about Northwest Arkansas is people here love local. They love local. And so when there's local businesses that they can support, often they're going to support those local businesses as opposed to, a big chain. And I really, really love that. I think also experiences that you have starting a business here are going to vary industry to industry. Yoga is one, and I'm sure, there's to a certain degree, this is in all industries, but yoga can be a little bit competitive and cutthroat. So, there's all those kind of community relationships that you have to be leery of and juggle and be mindful of. And in the same time, set boundaries for yourself and for your business about how you want to grow and how you want to be accepted within the community as well.
So you started your business in November of 2019?
2018.
Okay. So you had, at least a year before the world fell apart and establish your business and everything like that. So talk a little bit about what your, if you don't mind and are comfortable with, what your experience was like being a Black woman business owner in the height of, racial tensions escalating, social injustice and equity being really highlighted in the midst of a pandemic, in the midst of, what was that?
Everything. Everything.
And then also, maybe in a community context in Northwest Arkansas, like what ways did you maybe see the community show up, or what ways, could and should we have shown up?
Yeah. I'll be honest, that was a little tough. The world of yoga in general, okay, is a world, a community. This is not just Northwest Arkansas, this is globally, that has been traditionally and consistently whitewashed. And so what that means is that it's not normal, for people of color, or even men to some extent, to gain notoriety in the world of yoga. And when that does, there's always going to be those individuals who take issue with that, just because it's against status quo, right? So not because, they have racist tendencies, or possibly they have racist tendencies, there's no way for me to know, but it could also be that it's just not status quo, it's just different. And a lot of times people have issues with what's different. So you take, EYL, for example, we're boutique. Most studios here are not boutique. We're super hot, not the teachers, the atmosphere. But it's hot in the studio.
Don't be modest. Y'all are hot. Every one of you.
We are just offering something that's very different. And we're really, really promoting and thriving off diversity and inclusion, which is something that has not been accepted in the yoga world. So it's like you have this world that's traditionally and continuously still very whitewashed, and then enter this studio in the middle of Northwest Arkansas that is not only Black owned, it's thriving off saying, hey, you don't have to be white to come to yoga. And so, and playing hip hop music, and the teachers are hot, and and they feel like, they can brand themselves for whatever it is for whatever reason, they feel like they can brand themselves. I'd be lying if I said it didn't ruffle feathers in the area. It did, just because it was so against what was already established here in the yoga community. And I had instances where I had other studio owners who were very upset with me because we were so against the status quo in what we were doing. And that's when setting those boundaries comes into play. And, you know, you really having to protect your energy and protect your business and stay true to your goals and your values in starting your business, and set those boundaries around yourself so that you have the opportunity to continue to grow your business in an environment that is able to thrive and support you and your teachers that you have. So there was some issues, but we moved past them. I think that it's more, we are more accepted now for sure, not only by the community, but by the other studios around us. And it's kind of clear to the other studios around us in this industry that, hey, you know, we take up space here, and that we have something to say, and that we want to be heard.
That's good.
Wow. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
No, I'll go.
I always describe Northwest Arkansas, the business community, as abnormally collaborative, but I think but it stands to reason that, you know, within specific industries, especially, like you were saying, anytime there's something new, that causes some initial resistance and fear. Ultimately, you know, people are afraid of new things, and that's something that they haven't seen before. So sorry that was your experience.
And the community at large has been extremely supporting of us. You know, EYL is not going to be for everybody, and I completely understand that and honor that. But, you know, we've had so many people who are willing to give it a shot, who are like, what is this? You know, I don't know if it's for me, but I'm going to try it, and I'm going to support. Especially during all the protests and the Black Lives Matter movement. The love that we saw was just insane.
Really?
It was insane in this community, and not only in the community, but, you know, nationwide. People were really, really helping us and supporting us during the pandemic. So this whole year, we had people who were too scared to come to the studio, but never canceled their memberships, because they wanted to give us that, basically a donation every single month to help the studio keep the studio alive. So the love was absolutely real from the clientele and the community. It's just, you know, the business, you know, people in the yoga community who were a little bit resistant to what we were offering, and just, you know, what we were. It's very competitive. My husband gave me, he's given me a lot of advice that's blown my mind during this process. But one piece of advice, or one question he asked, you know, when I'm opening and I'm getting this pushback from different studio owners, because, you know, essentially they're scared that we're going to steal their clientele away, or, you know, whatever, which is what's going to happen in business, right? Your competitors are going to take issue with your existence. They want all of the clients, they want all of the business, but it doesn't work that way. And so he said to me one day, he was like, it seems like all of you are like fighting over the same 50 people. You guys are fighting over the same 50 clients. Why? He's like, there's so many thousands upon thousands of people in Northwest Arkansas, but you guys are fighting over the same 50 people. That's insane to me. And it was like mind blown. Like, you don't have to fight over clients. You can create new clients and convert new clients from other forms of workout. And it's like, since I've taken on that mindset, it's like all of that competitive spirit and nature has left the building. Wow. And when that leaves the building, it just frees up conscience and energy for other things that you really, really need to grow your business.
It's really the difference between a scarcity versus an abundance mindset.
Yes.
You make the pie bigger. You draw more people in. I mean, it starts that you feel like this is a movement for you.
Yes.
You pull more people into the movement rather than trying to get the same group of people. You know, it's one of the things that happens about disruption, particularly disruptors that don't ask permission when they just go do something. And I can really relate to that. It's like you didn't need anybody's permission to develop your own brand, your own approach, your own way of doing it, to be yourself. And it's going to piss people off, and the hell with them if it does, because that's what disruptors do. I mean, I think it's encouraging to hear how you kind of stuck with it. And there's always people that are going to be threatened by something that's new and interesting and maybe better. And the good news is, whether people like it or not, competition makes everybody better ultimately.
Yes, I agree. I agree.
But it sounds like, and your husband's advice on that one is right on. Draw new people in. If you got something cool, convert more people to yoga versus whatever else is out there.
Exactly. It's like, I'd say, you know, there's a few pieces of advice that he'd given me in this project during this whole thing, and that was probably the one that sticks with me the most. And he's absolutely right. You know, he's like, you know, everybody is not going to love EYL. You have to be okay with that. I have to be okay with that. There's a studio that's just a couple of blocks away from us. You know, the people who practice there may hate it at my space. The people at my space may hate it there. It's two different markets. I'm okay with both. There's room for both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. That's good insight. And it's encouraging to see that you're drawing new people in, and that you're able to keep a vibe that's authentic to you, which is the secret business. People will see through cookie cutter and things that are disingenuous just because that's the way it's always been. So
exactly.
So if you had the opportunity to go back in time, whether it was before, you know, you started the journey with EYL, or even further back than that, to give your younger self some advice, given what you know now and your experiences, what might that advice be?
I would have started yoga at an earlier age.
Really?
Yes. Just because I just would have started or yoga. Or I'm 43 years old. Okay, not saying that, you know, I have issues with my body, because I don't, because of yoga. But I look at the amount of time, or think about the amount of time that I have left on the clock to do all the fancy stuff that I do in yoga. And one thing that I preach to my yoga teacher trainees is that, hey, if you want to blow up, you know, you have to really stay consistent with your practice and continue to grow your practice, because one of the things that people will use to gauge whether or not they want to practice with you or learn from you is your ability to do certain things. And that's just the way this business is. You know, if you see a person who's struggling in their practice, a teacher who's struggling in their practice, or you see a teacher who has this amazingly beautiful, perfect practice, 9 times out of 10, you're going to want to practice with the one who has this amazingly beautiful, perfect practice. That's just the nature of the business. And so sometimes I wonder, like, how many years I have left on the calendar of being able to do all that funky stuff. I don't see an end of it in my future, but, you know, if I'd have got into this jam when I was like 25, you know, who knows what would have happened. I would have started younger for sure.
I mean, though that could also be your, you know, your claim to fame. Like, 95-year-old yoga instructor does, you know,
scorpion handstand. Oh God.
Yeah. So, no.
Yeah. You're right.
So how can people find it? We've got listeners in 100 countries. There may only be one listener in Belarus. We don't know, but 100 countries. And so how can they find out more about your practice and you and all that? What's the best way for them to check out what you're doing?
Social media by far is the best way. My personal social media is at Yoga ELXR. That's YOGA ELIXIR. And that's just my personal practice. You know, you'll see things about me, a little bit about my family. I like fashion and beauties and TikTok dances, all that stuff you'll see on that page. You can find my studio at ELXR Yoga Lounge on Instagram. It's at ELXR Yoga Lounge. And the business has no I's in the elixir, because there's no I in team, right? Same reason why elixir has no I's in it. And though that's the business Instagram. They can also find us online at www.elixiryogalounge.com.
Nicole, thanks for coming on. I mean, it's an
Thank you.
inspiration. It's a very cool story, the way you've gone about it, and we know that this is the first step in worldwide yoga domination for you. So.
Domination.
You heard it here
Thanks again for coming on.
Heard it here first.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the invite.
Take care. Best of luck.
Bye.
Bye.